Hello, good morning. I hope everybody had a wonderful 4th of July. This is Kelly from Kelly's Coffee and Crime Chat, and it is Friday, July 5th. I wanted to go ahead and get this out. I'm a little late. Well, not really late from my Friday uploads. So this will just be on the regular podcast. So, for everybody, because I'm just now doing it. So, I had a busy week. Husband's birthday was Wednesday. Just ate some lemon rum cake. And I'm drinking Java Mama lemon blueberry cobbler coffee. Oh my gosh, it is so good. Very, very good. It was in the Grind Days sale a couple weeks ago for like $7. Very good. I just got up, so I drink the hot coffee in the morning. I got in my refrigerator cold brew Revenge, and I was going to drink that, but I'm like, well, it's in the morning. I like to wake up with hot coffee. Revenge is perfect for this story, and I thought, I didn't even plan that, but Revenge is a dish best served cold, and that's why it is the cold brew in Java Mama. We do have Mama's Picks and Mama's Sips up now. Mama's Picks are 3 coffees at free shipping, and Mama's Sips are 3 teas at free shipping, and they are surfing Hawaiian type themed. The teas, one of them is a luau lemonade, which is a cold tea, and then the other 2 are hot, and then the 3 coffees, Sweet Surfer sounds wonderful, and then there's a couple, the other 2, I think one is the pretzel one, and I do not remember the third one, but they are up now. And if you get all 6 of them together, you get the free mug of the month. Or you can buy the mug. It is beach themed, and you can buy the mug for $16 on there. So, okay, here we go. Links will be in my show notes for everything. I am talking about Nannie Doss. Now, I have heard, many of you probably have heard this before. We're going to Oklahoma for this one. I am kind of branching out a little bit around the Midwest. I don't know. Oklahoma seems like it's part of the Midwest to me, because I need ideas. I like ideas. I like cases that not everybody has heard of, but this one, maybe some heard of, some didn't. I've heard of it, but I haven't heard it in this detail before I researched it. But my sources are wikipedia.org, allthat'sinteresting.com, Encyclopedia of Alabama, and there is a book called The Giggling Granny, because that's what they called her. And that book is very, very short. It's basically a novella, very short novella, and it is by Annette Rice. I listened to it on Audible, and it was a half an hour. I listened to the whole thing. So a lot of my research was from that book. Okay. Nannie Doss was born November 4th, 1905 in Blue Mountain, Alabama, which then is now called Anniston. Her parents were Louisa and James Hazel. They were poor dirt farmers, and she was the oldest of 5 kids. She had 3 sisters and 1 brother. Now, there was a sister Annie that was on the 1910 census. It was Annie or Addie, but she was not on the 1920 census. I have not heard of her death. I never saw anything of her death. But Nannie would have been, if she died between 1910 and 1920, Annie would have been 15. I'm not good at math, but you understand. 15 or early teens, maybe. James, her father, was so abusive, he would not let the kids go to school. But according to the book, Nannie went to the 6th grade. So I'm thinking she was the oldest. And then maybe all the kids came after her, and then it was like, okay, you guys ain't going to school, you're going to work on the family farm. And that's what they did all day. They would get up in the morning and work on that farm. Well, Nannie ended up as she could read. Of course, she went to the 6th grade, but she was not book smart at all. She had poor academic performance. And when she was 7 years old, they took a family visit and on a train to visit relatives. And there was a metal bar that was on the seat in front of her. Well, the train stopped abruptly, and it resulted in Nannie hitting her head on that metal bar, and she had a head injury. Now, for years, up until probably her adult life, or even after her adult life. She suffered long term from migraine headaches, depression, and even had blackouts. My throat's not woke up yet. This is how I get in the morning. I gotta take a drink. Just a second. I need some caffeine. Okay. She loved to read her mom's romance magazines. Now, like I said, she went to the 6th grade. So at first when I read that, I'm like, I didn't realize she went to school, could read, but she went to the 6th grade. And she hoped for this to be her future. You know, when you're a little girl and you read the fairy tales, the prince is going to come and save you on the white horse and all that stuff. Well, that's what she wanted out of these romance novels. And romance magazines, which I didn't realize they had back then, that had stories in them. So that was actually pretty cool. James would not let his daughters wear makeup or wear dresses or nice clothes like that because men would want to molest them. This is what he told them. And they were allowed to have no sleepovers at all, like other kids. Other kids could have sleepovers. They can go to dances, but not them. They were not allowed to attend social events. Now, she also loved reading the Lonely Hearts column. There was probably nothing else to do. I mean, what else are you going to do? You work on the farm, you don't have a TV, no radio, because they were not allowed to have a TV or a radio in the home. Now, as a teen, she found a way to sneak out and meet boys. Well, hey, I don't blame her. I would have done the same thing, Nanny. So I don't blame you on that one. In 1921, at 16, she got a job. She worked at a linen factory. There, she met a man named Charlie Braggs. Now, she only knew him 4 to 5 months, and then they ended up marrying with her father's consent, and I think she was rushing to get out of that house. And I would have done the same thing again. Now, Charlie was an only child, and his mother was single, never married. And she had him, so she lived with him. Now, Nanny had another warden, quote unquote warden, with the mother taking over Charlie's life. She took all of his time. And they ended up having 4 daughters. Now, in 1927, 2 of the middle daughters died from food poisoning. And Nanny drank heavily and smoked so much she became addicted and stressed. And Charlie would disappear sometimes for days. Now, he claimed he was afraid of her because the 2 middle daughters died of what they thought was food poisoning, and he was afraid of Nanny. Now, he would not eat or drink anything she made when she was in a bad mood. So, he would not eat or drink anything. And I think that's why another reason why he disappeared for so long, days on end, because he was probably eating, eating someone else's food or restaurants or somewhere. Now, Charlie ended up taking their oldest daughter, Melvina, and took off. He took her and left. That left Nanny with her newborn named Florine. Soon after Charlie's mother died. Now, Charlie's mother died, but I couldn't find out from what. Nanny started working at a cotton mill. Charlie returned Melvina to Nanny in 1928, so it was the following year. And a woman and her child was with him. So he had another woman. Nanny and her 2 girls moved back to her mother's house, Louisa's house. And she divorced Charlie. Boy, he lucked out. That's just what I got to say. He was lucky. Now, the Lonely Hearts column I mentioned earlier, and that's what Nanny liked to read. So she found in that column a man named Robert Harrelson. She married him in 1929 and moved her girls in with them to Jacksonville. That's where he was from. And I was going to look this up. I don't know, is there a Jacksonville? I know there's a Jacksonville, Florida. So I don't know if that's where it was. And I was going to look that up, and I forgot to see if there was a Jacksonville, Oklahoma. I am not sure if there is. Because even the book never mentioned a state. So that's why I'm wondering if it was in Oklahoma. Now, Robert had a criminal record, and she didn't find this out till after they married. The criminal record was for assault. He was also an alcoholic. Now, this mirrors her father. Charlie, I did not hear anything about him being an alcoholic or abusive. he could have been, because it seems like these men that, well, I don't know, but it just seems like she's got these men that mirror her dad. Now, Florine, she was only 2 years old when Nannie and her husband left her in an abandoned house. Neighbors found her and contacted Charlie, and he came to her rescue, which is good that the neighbors found her. Now, Florine later forgave Nannie for this. She didn't see her mom for 9 years after she was taken, so she would have been 11. And I don't think she ever went back and lived with her, but she later forgave her for this. I don't know if I could have done that. I don't know. That was Robert, the husband. Oh my God, I just cannot imagine this. Her and her husband Robert did that to her 2-year-old daughter. Now, her oldest, Melvina, had a baby boy in 1943 named Robert Hayes. So this is another Robert. I had to do a double take when I was reading this because I'm like, wait a minute. The husband's name's Robert. So anyway, her second baby, she had a baby boy in 1943. Her second baby died right after she was born. It was a daughter. And this was in 1945. Now, Melvina asked her husband about this whole thing, and he said that Nannie said the baby was dead because she wanted to know what happened. Well, it happened right after Melvina had her in the hospital. She saw Nannie, well, they said that the baby, her husband said, Nannie said the baby was dead, and they saw Nannie holding a pin when she told them the baby was dead. This is kind of a trigger warning here. If you don't want to hear this part, you can fast forward. I don't know, fast forward maybe just 30 seconds probably, or maybe a minute. Melvina thought she saw Nannie. Doctors couldn't figure out how the baby died, number one. Melvina thought that she saw Nannie stick a hat pin into the baby's head. But when she saw this, she was groggy from waking up after labor. So she saw that, and then when she asked about it, and they said she was holding a pin, I mean, that's a little bit fishy. So Melvina started dating a soldier after her marriage ended. It just ended after that. And she had a fight with Nannie since Nannie did not like her soldier guy that she was dating. So Melvina went to her dad's, Charlie, and she left her baby boy Robert with Nannie. Why would you do that? After you already suspect what she did to your second baby, why would you leave your son with her? I did not understand that. Well, he died on July 7th of 1945 in Nannie's care from asphyxia from unknown causes. That's what it was ruled. Nannie collected the life insurance on Robert in September. Now, the life insurance was $500, but what that was today, $8,616.46. That's what she collected, if it was today. On September 2nd, 1945, this was the same year, Robert Harrelson, Nannie's husband, died of rat poison in his whiskey. Now, what happened was she found an empty bottle of his whiskey outside when she was tending to her garden, refilled it with rat poison. And I'm thinking, I don't know what else she mixed with it. I would think you'd have to mix something else with it. Water, maybe? Or whiskey? Maybe she put some whiskey in it. That's what she did. She had to have mixed it with whiskey. He had raped Nannie the night before. He was out celebrating because that was the time when the Japanese surrendered in the war. If I can remember this, World War II. And they were all celebrating, and that's what he was doing, celebrating. And then he ended up raping Nannie that night. So she killed him the next day. Now, she met another alcoholic, plus a guy with an assault record and a lech, through a Lonely Hearts column again. When she was in Lexington, North Carolina, this is when she met him. His name was Arlie Lanning. She married him just after 3 days of knowing him. I don't understand that. Did people marry so quick back then, or what is the deal? I just don't get that. But anyway, Nannie would leave. Now, this is what would happen with her on this marriage. Nannie would leave and be gone for months at a time. I don't know why, but then she'd return and be a housewife like nothing was wrong. Well, I guess if he was abusive, maybe that's why she would take off. On September 16th, 1952, he died of heart failure. Now, everyone was supportive of Nannie just because he was, doesn't say how long they were married. I was just trying to see when they married, but 1952 he died, and everybody was in support of Nannie because of things that he had done. He had raped her. That's not the one that raped her. I'm getting husbands mixed up. They were just in support of her because he died of quote unquote heart failure. Now, Arlie willed his house to his sister. The sister hadn't even taken residence in it yet because they were living there, and the home burned down. The home burned down not long after Arlie's death. Nannie got the life insurance money. Arlie's mother died in her sleep, and then Nannie left North Carolina, which is weird when I read that. Arlie's mother died in her sleep, somehow. And then Nannie left North Carolina and lived with her sister Dovey. She went to see her. Now, Dovey was sick with cancer and could not get out of bed. Well, long after Nannie got there, Dovey died. Now, there was some discrepancy in the timeline here because Dovey died in 1950. But supposedly it says she went there after Arlie died, and Arlie died in 1952. So they're thinking that maybe that Dovey died in 1950, that she went to see her before Arlie died, and then after Arlie died, she went to see another sister. I mean, I don't know. Because she had, the little girl Annie died early, and then, she wasn't on the census, and then Dovey, and then I think she had another sister. So, I don't know, because back then some of the timeline and records are kind of hard to still have around to, find out. But Nannie then joined something called the Diamond Circle Club, which was a dating service. And through there, she met Richard Morton, who was a World War II veteran. He was from Jamestown, North Carolina. She married him in Emporia, Kansas. Nannie's mother, Louisa, came to live with them, and in 1953, she died. Now, they call this senicide, and senicide, she died of poison, and senicide is the act of killing an elderly relative when they are a burden. So, senicide is what they call what she died of. Now, 3 months later, May 19th of 1953, I got 3 months later, 1953, now 45. I'm trying to remember here, 3 months later. Yeah, because it was in 1953 she came to, okay. So 3 months later, she was then 45, and again, the Lonely Hearts column came in again. She moved on to a Sam Doss in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Now, back when she married Richard, I got to jump back here a minute. I'll get back to Sam Doss in a minute. But when she married or killed Richard, when she poisoned him, he was the one who, was that the one that raped her? Let me see a minute. Robert Harrelson. Yeah. Richard Morton, when she poisoned his whiskey, somehow the dog got really sick too. Of course, the dog died, which really saddened me. But they think he accidentally got into something outside. When she found his bottle outside, and because when he went outside, he ended up being sick. So they think that the dog had gotten into something, and so he died too. And I had that written in another area here. Now, this Sam Doss she married was a minister. And his whole family, wife and 6 kids, died in Arkansas from a tornado. So he was really broken up. Now, This is the guy, of course. Now, back when, I got to go back again at the very beginning. When Nannie was growing up, they didn't have a TV. There was no TVs at the time. I don't know why I said there was no TV allowed in the home, but I'm pretty sure they didn't have a radio either. This guy, Sam Doss, no TV or radio allowed. Like I said, it's so, these guys are so close to her father. Now, he was against her reading her romance novels, which I thought her father would have been too, but her mother read them. And then I also read that her and her mother hated Nannie's father. They hated him. So I was kind of surprised he let them read. I was really surprised at that. Not unless they hid him. But this Sam Doss did not want her reading those romance novels. And in September, he had flu-like symptoms. Didn't take this, doesn't take Nannie long. And he had to go into the hospital. Now, they said he had an infection in his digestive tract. And when they released him October 5th, he ended up dying. He was getting better in the hospital. So this looked suspicious, especially when Nannie collected the 2 life insurance policies she took out on him. His doctor ordered an autopsy. And they found arsenic. Now, Nannie was in the process of snagging another 60-year-old milkman. Not another milkman, but another husband. 60-year-old milkman of North Carolina. This guy was pretty lucky because Nannie was arrested. And they found so much arsenic in Sam Doss, it was enough to kill 10 men. She actually confessed and giggled while confessing to killing 4 husbands, her mother, her sister, her grandson, and her mother-in-law. Now, we know from all of this there's more deaths here, right? So, what happened was she lied first about never hearing of Richard Morton. Richard Morton is the one that she poisoned the whiskey and the dog. And they said they knew she was lying. She was married to him. So then she giggled and said, I guess I wasn't telling the truth. She joked about how she killed them. One of her husband's last words were, quote, "It must have been the coffee." Well, there was poison in his coffee, and that's when he died. They exhumed Richard Morton's body and found arsenic with the same amount, enough to kill several men. And then she'd laugh about how Sam loved his stewed prunes, because that's what she poisoned. And she said she never killed anyone who did not deserve it. Okay, so what about these babies? What about your daughters? You know. To get her to confess to one husband's death, Sam Doss, they told her she could keep her romance novels. So she did not confess to killing her 2 middle daughters, her 2 grandbabies, and 1 mother-in-law. I'm thinking it was the mother-in-law, the very first one, Charlie's mother. I don't know if it was Charlie's mother or the mother that died in her sleep, mother-in-law that died in her sleep. Arlie. I think it was Arlie's mother. Now, she was not charged with these deaths. Only Sam Doss. She had a 9-month stay at a mental hospital because they wanted to find out if she was fit for trial. She was under observation or, whatever it was that they were doing, giving her meds. I don't know. And this is the funny thing. She had so many friends there that when she left, they gave her a going away party. She made a lot of friends there in that mental institution. She was very pleasant. You would never ever think that this nanny or granny would be capable of murder. She was very pleasant to talk to. She was very likable. Just amazes me. But they found that she was fit for trial. That's why she had to go to this mental institution. So she pled guilty on May 17th of 1955. She got life in prison. The death penalty was off the table because she was a woman. Wow. I don't know why they did that. I know back then things were different, but I don't understand that one. Later, she regretted not having the death penalty. Nannie Doss, surrounded by her romance novels and romance magazines, died from leukemia at Oklahoma State Penitentiary in 1965. She is buried at Oak Hill Memorial Park and that is in McAlester, Oklahoma. Now, there is a documentary called The Giggling Granny, and I think it's the same as the book I read. I looked online. It's 37 minutes, and they said it was on Netflix, but I looked on Netflix and couldn't find it. I think it's Apple TV. I'm pretty sure that's what came up when I Googled it. And also this book by Annette Rice. She murdered from 1920 to 1954, and they're thinking 1920 because that first little girl, Annie or Addie, that I read at the beginning, was not on the census in 1920, but she was in 1910. And they're wondering, it's speculated that this was Nannie's first murder. And like I said, when she was 7, she had the head injury, and this book talks about that with serial killers. There's always some kind of either head injury or something. I'm not sure if that's entirely true because I have heard serial killer stories. I heard one in particular where the guy had no head injury that was known. Now I forgot who it was, but I heard it on another podcast. But a serial killer, is when people ask what makes them be called a serial killer or what gives them that name, they have to kill over 3 times in similar ways or close to similar ways somehow. And there were 2 murders she is suspected of, one in New Jersey and one in Idaho. But I never found out who it did. They didn't name them off in the book. And I don't know when these were supposed to have happened, because Idaho and New Jersey, I didn't even read anywhere that she was even there in those states. But her motivation was basically revenge. You know, you do something wrong to her, she's going to kill you. I'm telling you. I just, now the husband that raped her, that was the one that I would say, okay, yeah, I get it. But I don't get the children. I don't understand that at all. I don't get her sister. Not unless she had some revenge against her sister. Dovey was the second sister under her. She was the second child under Nannie. Nannie was the oldest. Okay, like I said, some of these I can understand, but some of these I cannot understand. It almost sounds to me like she was marrying these guys to get their life insurance. She's also called the Black Widow. That's another one was Lady Bluebeard and Giggling Granny. So she's got some, and Lonely Hearts Killer. But I thought the Lonely Hearts Killer story was a couple, a man and woman. And I need to look that up because I forget exactly sometimes I forget the details on some of these. But that's the story of Nannie Doss, also called the Giggling Granny, Lady Bluebeard, and the Black Widow. So, I hope you enjoyed this one, and I hope everybody had a wonderful 4th of July. If anybody has any suggestions, please let me know. Midwest murders, Midwest crime even. Doesn't even have to be murder. It could be a con, which I really would like to do some con stories. There is a couple I found, but I want to do some more. I want to do some other ones. And I'm having a hard time finding some cons that were around in the Midwest. Maybe I need to venture out to Oklahoma some more, or I do quite a few in Ohio, like I did a couple weeks ago or the last one here that was available for everybody. Sidney Powell, that was sad. Very, very sad. So I do Michigan, Minnesota, I go up north. I can even go down to Texas, maybe. I try not to do too much in the South, which I could. I mean, I do Missouri, but I try to kind of keep it right around around my state as much as I can. Oklahoma's not that far, but I just try to keep it in the Midwest as much as I possibly can. So maybe farming community, let's say. I don't know. I know New York's part farming too, but that's more way up there up north. And which I have done New York. And I will do cases that really need attention, that need to be known, maybe like unsolved or injustice, innocent people being framed. I do those too. And it doesn't matter where those are at, because those need to be known. I mean, at least in the United States, they need to be known. Or in other countries, because you never know what can happen if, to people. So, I've been so busy. I haven't really had time. Last night, there was a Twilight Zone marathon on, so I watched some of that. And it was, boy, I'm sitting here going, these are really good. I really like them. But boy, some of the effects are different. They actually did good for back then, though. That's my type of show. Twilight Zone, Black Mirror. I wish they made a new Twilight Zone. They had one in the 80s, which I didn't even know about at the time. And I really wish they would do it again. Now, I do like Black Mirror. I just wish they had more episodes, I think they only got like 4 or 5 a season, and then it takes forever for the next one to come out. So I just wanted to get this out to everybody. I'm sorry I was late this week with the early access. So this will just be on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcast. So I want everybody to have, hopefully had a wonderful 4th of July and have a wonderful week. And I'm going to try to get the first bonus episode up for Patreon. I haven't done it yet. I am enjoying some other podcasts. Our true crime podcast, that is good. That's a good one. These ladies really know how to tell a story, and they get right to it. They might do a couple things like at the very beginning, but they get right into it. I really like that one. I like to shout out all my favorite podcasts because that's what the podcast community is all about, that we support each other. And Death Do Us Part, still awesome as always. Brutal, Bizarre, and Boozy, wonderful podcast. True Crime B&B. I already said Death Do Us Part. Gosh, I'm blanking here. I know I got more. I'm just blanking. Detective Perspective, one of the new ones I have. Crime and Coffee Couple. Or Coffee and Crime. I'm messing up on theirs. That's another one I love. And there's a lot that I'm really into right now. Book of the Dead, that was the one I was blanking on. That's another good one. Evil Pudding, another good one. So if you have any questions, I will leave my email, Instagram, Facebook page, X, used to be Twitter, everything in the show notes. If you have any suggestions, you can always comment. Well, no, I don't think you can comment on the podcast, unless you're on Patreon, which this will not be because it's available for everybody right now. So I'm just going to put it on the main platform for everybody. And I will try to get up an early access and first bonus episode for July. First. I got to do the first one first before I do the second one. So that's all for today. I'm looking into another case that I've never heard of for maybe next week. And wow, it's one that is like a serial killer kind of. I never heard of this guy. There's a couple serial killers around this area I've never heard of. So again, have a wonderful week. Have a wonderful July. And of course, I will be back next week with a new case. And I want to, again, wish everybody well. And I will see you next time.